Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Lynn Haven City Commission on Tuesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. It's great to see everybody here, and this meeting is now called to order. At this time, if I may, I would like to ask my friend, Mr. Leon Miller, if he would lead us in an invocation. And he knew I was going to call on him. He could tell by the way I was smiling. Thank you so much. If you would please stand.
May we pray. Our Father, our God, we want to thank you for touching us this morning, and we rose from our bed, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, we want to thank you as we started out on this journey today to do different things, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, we want to ask this commissioner and the community that we may bond together for the betterment of Lynn Haven and the citizens of Lynn Haven, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, we know all things are in your hand, and we want to thank you. Thank you for those who are attending here today to support this city, oh Heavenly Father. Our Heavenly Father, we just ask your grace and mercy for Christ's sake ever. Amen.
Amen.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Mr. Miller. At this time, I'd like to begin with the mayor's report, beginning with a recognition of the Arc of the Bay for Adopt a Highway signs located at 18th and Carolina to Highway 390 and 19th and Caroline to Main Avenue. I had the pleasure this past week of attending the rebranding of the St. Andrews Bay Center to the Arc on the Bay, or of the Bay, and this is our beautiful center located right here in Lynn Haven. Mr. Ron Sharp, if you would come up and bring whoever you have with you so that we can recognize all that you do for this community and the residents who are with you and your staff, and we are honored that you're part of Lynn Haven, so I'll be right down to present that to you. I apologize. I have too many papers up here. Next, if I could ask Ms. Pam Darworth, the liaison for the ADA, to come forward, and we have a proclamation.
I was going to say this moves. Be careful.
Proclamation, and we're so happy you can be with us again today. Thank you. On the 27th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, we recognize the act which has helped tear down barriers for millions of people living with disabilities. On this anniversary of important legislation, our nation underscores our commitment to ensuring that all individuals have an equal opportunity to realize their full potential. And whereas since July 25th, 2017, this historic legislation has provided a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. The ADA reflects our nation's faith in the promise of all individuals and helps to ensure that our nation's opportunities are more accessible to all. And whereas when President George H.W. Bush signed this groundbreaking act into law, it better enabled citizens with disabilities to participate fully in all aspects of life. Over the course of 2 decades, this act has made our schools and workplaces more welcoming, helped change attitudes that once seemed unchangeable, and expanded the opportunity for many exceptional Americans. And whereas the ADA is one of the most successful civil rights laws in our history and has been an essential part of countless American lives. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Margaret Deal Anderson, as mayor of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby proclaim July 25th, 2017 as a day of celebration in honor of the 27th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the city of Lynn Haven, and celebrate the progress that has been made toward full participation of people with disabilities in our community and society. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Lynn Haven to be affixed this 25th day of July 2017. And I would also like to add that Ms. Pam Darworth was a federal appointee by President Bush for her work with Americans with disabilities. So if we could all just give her a round of applause for all the work that she has done.
Oh, as my granddaughter told me yesterday, I'm getting old. I've been at this for 27 years myself. I had a presidential appointment, and President Bush also made me the ADA liaison, and it's not term limited out, so I'm still your ADA liaison. On the 25th anniversary, I wanted to bring this all to your attention. Everything I do, proclamations I receive, is always put on record in Washington, D.C. When we did the 25th anniversary, I received 37 proclamations, not only from our governments locally here, but the Chambers of Commerce, the Naval Base, the Air Force. I had 37 that gave us proclamations, the super judges, everybody under the sun. And it was all put on record in Washington, D.C. I want you to know we are the only place in the United States that had 37 proclamations recognizing the 25th anniversary of AD. So you're notorious for that also. We have made so many accomplishments here locally. I really, really appreciate it's all about accessibility for everybody, not just people with disabilities, because we're all one family, are we not? And I thank you for this proclamation this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's funny.
And the third proclamation for this afternoon, if I may, would the family of Doc Julius Smith please step forward? Well, I may get a lump in my throat. This proclamation. Whereas Julius Doc Smith was born on July 25th, 1939 in Linwood, Alabama, and whereas Doc, as he is affectionately known by his friends and family, y'all didn't know you had an emotional mayor, huh? Doc was special to me too. Was married to the love of his life, Miss Della, for 55 years. And whereas Doc was devoted to his family and a loving father to his 4 sons, Julius, Tim, Chris, and Michael, and whereas Doc loved the Lord Jesus and served as a deacon at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church for 45 years, and whereas Doc opened Doc's Tires and served the community for more than 40 years, And whereas Doc served on the Lynn Haven City Commission in the early 1980s, and whereas Doc devoted his life in being a pillar of the community. Now therefore I, Margot Deal Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby proclaim to ceremoniously rename 17th Street east of Highway 77 to Minnesota Avenue in Lynn Haven, Florida on July 25th, 2017 as Julius Doc Smith Street. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Lynn Haven to be affixed this 25th day of July 2017. Congratulations to your family. And we have the sign. We have the sign. Thank you for all your family means to all of us. Congratulations. And if you think I had a shaky voice and a tear or two, just go out and visit at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church sometime and see if you come away with a dry eye. Moving on, I did want to mention in the mayor's report that over the last week I did have the privilege of being with Mr. Ron Sharp and the others who came to the renaming or rebranding of the St. Andrew Bay Center, and it was quite an occasion. We had a great time. And I've had many, many calls from residents over the past couple of weeks revolving around paving and traffic and flooding issues, some of those same items that keep coming up. And we are moving forward, as you'll be hearing tonight, as we move into some of the items on the agenda toward getting closer to the paving project that's going to really transform the city and help with transformation of infrastructure so that we all see some relief and have a better quality of life as we move forward. So I'm anticipating getting all that underway as soon as possible. So that's the conclusion of my report, and I'll just go down to the end and ask for Commissioner Russell's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a couple of things. I just want to let you know I've met with the new city manager a couple of times, and I'm pleasantly surprised, or not pleasantly tell you that I've been impressed with him so far, and look forward to having many more meetings.
Thanks, sir.
I attended the grand opening for the Southern Event Center a couple of days ago, and if you haven't been there, you ought to check out the facility. I think it's going to be a nice asset to the city of Lynn Haven. And I have a couple of letters that I've received from a couple of different people. I'm assuming we'll probably address that in a new business with one of them from Mr. Strickland. I think we'll address that in a new business. I also received a letter from Mrs. Bracey for some flooding issues she had at 807 Wyoming Avenue, and I just want to let you know that the city manager and the city engineers already jumped on it along with Bobby Baker, and they're already looking at how they're going to fix the issue. So I appreciate y'all jumping on that so quick. But I do think that it is time for the city of Lynn Haven to have a stormwater study done. And let's figure out what the issues we have and see how we're going to fix them. And that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tender?
I've got a couple of things. I had a gentleman contact me a few days ago regarding some homes with a lot of trash out in front of them. And I want to say that our code enforcement man went out, and I drove by a few days later. 2 of them were cleaned up. And I mean, I'm not talking just a little trash. I'm talking major trash in their yards. And one is yet to touch it. But it is my understanding that they have 21 days to clean them up, for those of you who don't know. And after the 21st day, they can start being fined $500 a day if they don't get their yards cleaned up. Then I also had a resident come to my house and knocked on the door about Porter Park, and I think this has been resolved as well. They were concerned with the walking bridge. There was so much trash and things of that nature, and they were really concerned with some homeless folks that they saw there. And I have since talked to one of our police officers, and he has assured me that they took care of the gentleman. He was there quite frequently. The person that came to me walks that bridge every morning, and she just saw some things that were pretty disturbing, but I asked the same person the next day. It had all been cleaned up. The trash had been cleaned up, and I think Leisure Services is doing everything they can do. People go out there on the weekends and have birthday parties and whatnot. They just are leaving tons of trash. But I think that's been resolved. Wyoming Avenue, Miss Liz, she came and spoke to me last week about that, and I spoke to city manager, and like Commissioner Russell said, they're working on that issue. Carolina Avenue, again, 514 Caroline Avenue. I spoke with Chris Forehand about this, and he's going to go out and take a look at it. The draining problem seems to be a manhole cover that has collected sand up to 6 inches from the top of this manhole cover. And as Mr. Forehand explained to me, it just needs to be vacuumed out, and that might be a great solution for this drainage problem there. So they're working on that. And also, I got a call an hour before I came here from a lady over at 1704 Carolina. We fixed a pipe that burst last Thursday in her front yard. She had just put new sod down, and they left the hole wide open, and her sod's laying on top of the pile of dirt. And it's starting to grow into this pile of dirt. So basically, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, first of all, I just want to welcome Mr. Michael White to the diocese, and we're glad to have you as part of our team up here and looking forward to great things. I've met with Mr. White on several occasions, and he's going to do a great job for our city, so I really appreciate that. Other than that, that's all I have. I've actually been out of town on vacation and ready to go back to work now.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. I hate that I missed all the events, but as you all know, I was traveling on behalf of the TPO for the MPOAC down south Florida, and received a lot of good information at that meeting that I'll share some of that with the TPO, which is meeting tomorrow. And also, I'd just like to mention that I am looking forward to working with Mr. White. We did have an opportunity to meet briefly, and I think we'll work well together. So, thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I also wanted to add one other thing to the mayor's report this evening. It is the first commission meeting where Mr. White has joined us for the meeting as our new city manager. We want to welcome him, but I also wanted to bring to your attention, we were going to bring his finalized contract tonight for approval, but the city attorney and myself and Mr. White are still looking at some details of that contract, and so we'll be bringing the rest of that to the next meeting in 2 weeks. And now, is there
a 2-week extension to the contract?
Actually, we had said that we would bring, the contract tonight. Right now, Mr. White is working under a temporary contract with the city, and so what I need is a motion and a second from the commission that we would extend his temporary contract for 2 more weeks while we're negotiating the final contract.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Any objection, comments, or questions from the public? Thank you. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell? Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so we will, that has carried, and we will be approving to extend his temporary contract for 2 more weeks while we finish the negotiations. At this time, the city manager's report, please.
It's traditional here at the city that we try to recognize outstanding employees and their achievements that they do each day in providing services to all the citizens in Lynn Haven. This time I'd like to ask Mr. Mike Brown to come up front if he could.
Good, Mike.
Well, as Ms. Tender alluded to a little earlier, the person responsible for some of the code enforcement and cleaning up a lot of these properties this is Mr. Mike. He has a difficult task each day dealing with a lot of citizens and the things that go along in the city that fall under his realm of duties. But tell you a little bit about Mike. Mike has been employed by the city as code enforcement officer since February 2012. In the past 3 years, he has taken a proactive approach instead of a reactive one, to the extent that citizens' complaints have been greatly reduced. Mike has had a significant impact on helping us keep the city of Lynn Haven clean, tidy, and beautiful, having opened more than 1,100 new cases so far this year. So that's quite a feat, Mike. On behalf of the commission and my office, I want to present you as Employee of the Month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. White, did you have additional items in your report?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6 will be the city attorney's report.
Yes, ma'am, I do have one quick item. As you all know, the FDOT is actively trying to expand Highway 390, and they work diligently to try to resolve any kind of taking issues with the property owners. Occasionally, they are not able to do that, and they have to sue the property owners for a condemnation. When they do that, they name the city as a party to the lawsuit, just to make sure that our interest is foreclosed out. And so when we get one of those lawsuits, we verify that we don't have any interest in the property. If we do, we object, and then we make an appearance in the case if necessary. There's been 2 or 3 already. They've had to serve the mayor, and so FDOT has asked if I would be allowed to serve as a process for the mayor, so they don't have to keep hiring a process server and spending the money to do that. And I said I'd be happy to, as long as the commission approves. So I'm asking if it's okay for me to continue to accept service process on behalf of the city and FDOT condemnation suits on Highway 390.
So is there a motion for acceptance of the proposal of the attorney?
Move approval.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? I certainly appreciate that offer. Any comments from the public? Okay, Mr. White, if you'll please call the roll.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so motion carries. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. I do have one other item that I neglected to bring out in the mayor's report. It's not necessarily an actionable item, just an informational item for the board, unless someone chooses that they would like to move it forward. I have had a letter, and I believe if I read it correctly, all of you probably received copies of it as well, from an individual in our community who is disabled, who has asked for permission to be able to take his electric golf cart, which is a utility vehicle by federal standards for a person with a disability, onto the Bailey Walking Bridge. I know that was a discussion point in the past that was not received by some well, and others thought it was okay. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that I have received that letter, if you've not read yours or seen it, because he did cite that this is a federal regulation and that his electric golf cart is seen as a utility vehicle, that it would be discriminatory not to allow him on the bridge. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I alluded to that letter in my
And the individual
report.
was Fred Strickland. I'm sorry, I didn't mention his name.
Are we going to, do we want to handle that now, or should that be handled in new business?
We can do it either way. We can bring it up as new business later on. If you want to make a motion to add it to the agenda, we could do that, or we can do it now, whichever you prefer.
I would like to have some time to speak with the attorney on it before we make this decision.
Pardon me? I'm sorry. If you would wait for a comment period, thank you, sir. Commissioner Russell, did you?
I have no problem letting the other commissioners talk with the lawyer first.
Okay, does anyone else on the board have a comment to make?
I don't know, I don't know how much time they need to talk to the attorney. It seems if it's a federal law, I don't know what there is to discuss, but to allow them to do it.
The discussion is whether it's a safety issue. The ADA compliant law says that if we determine that it's not safe to allow them on there, then we can preclude them. So,
Okay.
and there is an issue that has to be discussed.
So there has been a comment that they would like, that Commissioner Barnes would like to have time to confer with the attorney, and we do have Mr. Strickland is present. Mr. Strickland, would you like to make a comment on your behalf since I did bring it up, or would you prefer to wait till public commentary? Go ahead. Thank you.
Fred Strickland, 702 West 6th Street in Lynn Haven. I want to be very transparent here. I did not collude with, I have not met this esteemed lady who has 37 proclamations from the ADA. I wish I had. I'm very proud of you. I'm sorry? Yes, I did write each one of you a letter requesting that we open the bridge just a few more inches. It is a federal law, and it clearly states that an electric golf cart can be used, as long with the Segway, electric scooters, electric wheelchairs. I cannot walk very far. They're pumping rat poison in me as I speak right now. I would like to get on the old bridge with the Bailey Bridge. It doesn't require a meeting with the attorney. It doesn't require a workshop. It doesn't require a motion. It doesn't require a second. It doesn't require a vote. All it requires is a phone call from the city manager or the mayor or someone to pick up the phone and call a Lynn Haven worker and say, go over there and open the gate a few more inches, and the problem goes away. Am I correct?
Mr. Strickland, I will also confer with the city attorney and find out what he advises as to whether there has to be commission action or not. And as soon as I speak with him, which will be tonight, I will contact you and let you know what the next step will be.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else on this?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to know exactly in the ADA compliance federal law where it says golf cart. So I wasn't able to find that.
It has to be an electric, I did read it myself. It does have to be an electric golf cart. It cannot be a gas golf, and it has to be, you can actually even take a golf cart into a building like a building like Sam's that has the wider aisles and all. It has to be the right size. But it is, I did check on that, and my understanding is it is a federally approved utility vehicle for a person who is disabled.
Okay, yeah, I just...
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to look yourself.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we actually we may have gotten something from the lawyer already, but to be honest with you, I also wanted to... I know Ms. Dorothy, I wanted to reach out to our ADA, so if she's prepared, maybe she could speak since we have her here tonight.
Sure.
I mean,
Are you open to her speaking now to this?
Are you familiar with this situation? Are you familiar with it at all? Otherwise, I'll reach out to you. I told you tonight I'll get with you, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so she would like to have her written
Yeah,
materials.
because I was going to reach out to her because I know her through TPO.
We can't hear.
Would-
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you.
Although it's approved, okay, I can't hear me, so I can't tell. It may be ADA compliant, but it also has to come into compliance with regulations for transportation and all those. And I think it may or may not fall through for you to be permissible. But I'd need to look at the materials before I would give you an official recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So as I said, Mr. Strickland, I will be conferring with the attorney, and I will also be back in touch with you to let you know whether the attorney advises that you could go ahead or if we have to have commission action or resolution, but I'll be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Then we move to the consent agenda, and thank you, which is item number 7, the minutes from the last meeting, which was July the 11th, the regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Any comments from the public? Thank you. Mr. White, would you please call the roll for approval or disapproval?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the minutes stand approved. There is no old business, so moving on to new business. Item number 8 will be the first reading of Ordinance 1037. This is a proposed large-scale future land use map amendment for Andrews Plantation via the required state review process. There's no action required, but there is a reading required of the ordinance. Mr. City Manager, do you have the ordinance?
Yes. This is the first reading of the ordinance proposed to adopt the land use amendment. The second reading will be held at the public hearing on August 8th for the City Commission to take public commentary and decide whether to adopt the proposed comprehensive future land use map amendment ESR-17-2.
Okay, was that the actual ordinance?
That was the summary.
You've got to read the title of the ordinance.
Okay. Sorry. I do apologize to the audience. Ordinance number 1037, an ordinance of the City Commission for the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the adopted comprehensive plan, providing for purpose and intent, providing for a title, amending the future land use map from Bay County R1 to City of Lynn Haven, low density residential for a parcel of land, parcel number 11573-050-000, located between County Road 389 and the Cameron's Crossing subdivision, which is approximately 24.84 acres within the city, as more accurately described within the body of the ordinance, providing for severability, providing for a copy on file, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. We do have our city planner present if there's anyone on the commission who has a question or concern with this ordinance that you'd like to ask. Anyone from the public? There appears to be none. Moving on then to item number 9, and this will be the first reading of ordinance 1038. This is a request for a small-scale future land use map amendment by Mr. Jerry Jimerson for the west half of 1002 Florida Avenue and 101 New York Avenue. And this is no action required, just a reading.
Ordinance number 1038, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from low-density residential to mixed use for an approximate .688 acres of property located at 1002 Florida Avenue and 1011 New York Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board regarding this ordinance? Any from the public? Moving on to item number 10. This is the first reading of ordinance 1039, a request for small-scale future land use map amendment from Florida 1 trustee I Incorporated Carolyn S. Anderson and Eddie Mary Brown for 3 parcels comprised of approximately 1.41 acres located at 1317 Ohio Avenue, 1304 Pennsylvania Avenue, and 1308 Pennsylvania Avenue. No action is required. It's a first reading.
Ordinance number 1039, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from mixed use to commercial for an approximate 1.41 acres of property located at 1317 Ohio Avenue, 1304 Pennsylvania Avenue, and 1308 Pennsylvania Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I'm just curious where that's located. Is it on a particular corner?
Thank you. This is Amanda Richard, our city planner.
It's the property next to the CVS. CVS is moving.
Ian will transfer the information onto this screen in just a moment, I believe. But yeah, you're correct when, Commissioner Russell, when you referred to the CVS property. What's going to happen is that the current CVS property is going to lose some of their land because of the widening of 390. This is the CVS property here that you can see on the corner. And they're going to lose some of the south of their property when 390 is widened. So what they're doing is they are purchasing they're purchasing a few of the properties to the north. Some of the properties already have a commercial land use, so that's not a problem. But the two properties on Pennsylvania that they're purchasing currently have a mixed-use land use, and so what they're asking for is for those to be commercial, and also the eastern half of the property they're currently located upon is mixed use at the moment, which is fine. It's just that this is going to tidy it up because it means that all of the parcels involved in the new CVS project will be, if you approve it at the next commission meeting, will be commercial.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any from the public? Thank you. Then moving to item number 11, which is the first reading of ordinance number 1040, proposing to formally adopt reference to background screenings policy in the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances for all vendors, volunteers, coaches, referees, and umpires providing services at city parks while permitting revision to the policy.
Ordinance number 1040, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Chapter 42 of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances regarding parks and recreation, formalizing an existing background screening requirement for all vendors, volunteers, and coaches providing services at city parks, adopting a background screening policy, providing for revisions to such policy by resolution, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an immediate effective date.
Thank you, and there's no action required unless, do you have questions or comments, commission members? There appear to be none. Any questions from the public on this ordinance? Thank you. Then moving on to item number 12. This is the first reading of ordinance 1041. This is regarding the abandonment portion of Railroad Avenue right-of-way between 13th and 14th Street. No action required, but if you would please do the first reading of that ordinance.
Ordinance 1041, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, providing for the vacation and abandonment of a portion of the Railroad Avenue right-of-way located between 13th Street and 14th Street, as more particularly described herein, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an immediate effective date.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission on this particular item? There appear to be none. Any from the public? Pardon me? No.
Talking about Tyndall?
Would you like to speak to?
It's an old right-of-way. It just happens to be called Railroad Avenue.
On the railroad, but it's not
Yeah,
still.
there used to be a railroad from actually further down in Lynn Haven up to the bay, and that's where this road runs, but it's in a right-of-way right now.
I misunderstood your question. I thought you wanted to see it. I was asking the city planner. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, thank you. Okay, moving to item number 13. This will be an actionable item, and this is resolution number 2017-07-688, authorizing the acquisition and subsequent sale of the Lynn Haven Fuel Depot property from the United States Air Force to Marina Island, LLC, including a draft development agreement and a perpetual easement for utilities and a rails-to-trails system on the former railroad corridor. Would you please read the resolution,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
White?
Resolution number 2017-07-688, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, authorizing the acquisition of subsequent sale of the Lynn Haven Fuel Depot from the United States Air Force to Marina Island, LLC, approving the conveyance agreement for the sale of the fuel depot from the United States Air Force, approving the purchase and sale agreement with Marina Island, approving the form of the development agreement with Marina Island, approving the easement agreement with Marina Island for the fuel depot railroad right-of-way, authorizing the mayor to execute the conveyance agreement, purchase and sale agreement, easement agreement, and other closing documents, and provided an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second on this item?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Russell and a second by Commissioner Friend for this item acceptance. Is there any discussion or questions from the board regarding this item?
close.
Yes, we're getting close. Any comments or questions from the public?
I do have one comment, Mayor. I know you all have seen the documents and the summary. The only issue that's really come up that is different from what we talked about before, the last few times we've approved this, is there's a windfall agreement as part of the agreement, which basically the purpose of that was an anti-flipping provision so that the developer couldn't purchase the land and then turn around on a quick basis, not do any work and flip the property. If that was the case, then the city would share in that the profits, basically. And that's how it was designed originally. The new partner to Blue Water, who's been actively involved with this for a long time, has raised some issues with the anti-flipping provision. And so that is still a little bit in flux. I think that we've had a long, good discussion about it, and we're all on the same page. We just need to work out the new language. But the provision will still be the same as far as designed to windfall profit, kind of anti-flipping. It just may be structured a little different than is in the agreement you see before you. And I would, if you vote for this motion, I would ask that you give the mayor and city manager authority to make those changes in the agreements as we go forward.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? And are there comments or questions from the public?
Chris Hine with Blue Water Development. There's one other provision that we may want to put in there that would include, we already own 81 acres adjacent, and so we think this is probably a good time to go ahead and put that land in and have it underneath the developer's agreement. So that would be the only other thing to maybe do on a post-approval basis.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. The development agreement, if you remember, is an exhibit to this agreement for the form, but it can be changed, and it'll come back before the commission for final approval once the deal closes. And that's something we've talked about, and we will insert that into the development agreement also.
What is the issue with the first clause that you were talking about?
So the windfall, and that may not be a great way to name it, but that's what we named it. It's basically an anti-flipping provision.
Oh, I understand the concept, but what's the concern there?
I think the concern of the developer from our discussions is just that the first, and I'll just go back to kind of where we started with this. When we were negotiating last time, Blue Water was intimately involved with it, and they had kind of a silent money partner. And so there was some concern among the negotiating team that the silent money partner wasn't necessarily engaged as much as he should have been, and that there was a fear that he could pull out or not do any significant development on the property, just sit on the property, and then decide they want to do something different and then flip it, and then the city would have missed out on that opportunity. This partner seems much more engaged. They've been actively involved in negotiations, and they have raised a specific issue that they think this will impact their ability to sell some of this property, having this condition. It's a 3-year condition that had percentage of profits based on the income that they would get from selling the property. And they think that that is could encourage them to not develop the property because they have some partners ready to go right now, and they want to make sure that this doesn't impact that development.
We don't have a time frame on when they have to break ground in the contract?
In the development agreement, they have to do some kind of development activity every 6 months. And so, I mean, from our discussions with them, I anticipate they're going to move pretty quick from what we've seen on this. And so the intent is going to be to keep the anti-flipping provision in there, probably expand it so it just encompasses the entire large parcels, and smaller parcels will be allowed to be sold and flipped freely without having any kind of restrictions on them. But we still need to work on the city manager and I and the mayor are going to talk about that and try to resolve those issues.
So do I need to amend my motion then to give you the permission to do the? Well,
the resolution itself talks about have the mayor and the city manager can make non-material changes, and so I think it'd probably be better to go ahead and amend your motion just so we understand the negotiators that is a non-material changes in the windfall agreement. It has to stay in the agreement, but the substance can change a little bit.
So then, why don't you word the motion that you want me to?
The motion would be to approve Resolution 2017-07-688, with the addition that any changes to the windfall provision would be non-material to the agreement.
I'll amend my motion to that.
And is there a second? All right, wake up,
Second.
everyone.
So you got to have that motion, or you got to have that second withdrawn if he's not going to amend it.
I'm a little uncomfortable with this, so I want to make sure I understand.
Okay.
The windfall, I was pretty involved with that. So what are we saying exactly then? Are we saying that the windfall is going to change, the 3-year term's going to change, the amount that we get's going to change, is all that becomes negotiable now?
Yes.
I think I would want to see that.
Okay.
That's just me. So I mean, no disrespect to the negotiators, but I think I would want to see what the change is going to be to that particular part of the agreement.
So because didn't mean to interject, but because we are on such a tight line between now and closing, if you would need to see it as the commission, which I totally respect, before, instead of authorizing the mayor, the attorney, and the city manager to go forward, if there were significant changes, non-material changes, would this board be willing to meet in a special meeting to approve that if that were to come up and it was something we needed to do in order to stay on target for closing?
I'd be more than willing to have a special meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to state, though, that my belief about this property is if this doesn't close, and no offense to Blue Water or whatever the name of the new company is, I think that the city needs to move forward and buy the property ourselves. We cannot let this property go into the GSA. That's my opinion. So, I mean, if Blue Water's not going to do it, then I think the city needs to, in my opinion.
And the attorney specified that any developments would be non-material changes. You're still uncomfortable?
Well, to me, that's kind of a monetary change. I mean, that was a very important part of the contract, in my opinion, with everything considered with the contract. So,
I'm sorry. It's my understanding that you're only talking about the smaller out parcels. You're not talking about any substantial piece of property, right? In the sale, like they could carve out an out parcel and sell it, but they can't sell the entire development.
The way the windfall agreement currently works is that any vacant parcel, so it's anything they haven't done any development activity on, any vacant parcels that are sold are, the city would get a percentage of a net profit based on 1, 2, or 3 years, 50, 40, or 30. Net profit is computed by basically taking the price that they got for that parcel and then subtracting all the money that they've put into this development. So it would include the purchase price and would include any development that they've done anywhere else on the property. That's a deductible business expense. So for instance, if they sold a small piece of property for whatever, $100,000, that there's zero profit on that because they've already spent millions on the property acquisition itself and then whatever they've spent on developing the property up to that point. So it really was designed for a large sale, basically a large, and encourage them to put work into the property, kind of raise that number up so it doesn't affect them as much. And they have come back, in fairness to them, and said that they think that's going to impact their ability to turn parcels around. It could be a misunderstanding, or we could come up with new language. And so if the commission thinks that's a material provision, which it sounds like you do, then if you approve the motion tonight for the resolution, the mayor will be authorized to sign the agreement as is. But if we make changes in that windfall agreement, we'll come back for a special meeting with just that one particular section, talk about it, and get it approved before the contract is signed.
Is that agreeable to everyone on the commission?
Yeah, that I understand, and I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. Then is there a motion?
Let's just withdraw all the motions.
Yeah, and start over because this is.
So I withdraw my motion.
So we would need a motion to authorize the mayor and the city manager to act on behalf of the city on this resolution if there's no significant word
It
changing.
would just be a motion to pass Resolution 2017-07688, because there's language in there about non-material changes, yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second to accept Resolution 2017-07688, authorizing acquisition and subsequent sale and so forth. Any further discussion? Any questions from the public or any comments from the developers? Mr. Hines.
One thing I want to point out to the commission, the funding on this project happens August 3rd. So that means there's got to be some engagement here. And I know Robert's going to be gone tomorrow, so this is going to happen next week.
Yeah, and we've just given her permission to sign the contract, as it states. And I'm adamant when I say that if this development doesn't go through, I'm going to push this commission to buy the property ourselves. Just let you know that.
So at this time, Mr. White, is there any other comment from the public? I'm sorry. Everybody's good. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so it is approved. And Mr. Hines and Mr. Jackson, there is no one who is more excited about the possibility of this closing, and so I'm sure this commission is going to work very hard to make sure we move forward. So this will be a great acquisition for Lynn Haven as well. Moving on to item number 14, which is a discussion and possible action on the RFQ half-cent sales tax of qualified proposers. I wanted to share with the public the letter from the city manager regarding this, because this is a little different process. This is in reference to the half-cent sales tax infrastructure project. Dear Commissioner and Mayor, this is from our city manager, we received only 2 qualifying bids for the half-cent sales tax infrastructure project. The 2 candidates are C.W. Roberts / BCC Engineering and Phoenix Construction / Panhandle Engineering. These candidates have met all the qualifications for RFQ number 17-1. In order to move forward with the process, it is staff's recommendation that you take action at the July 25th Commission meeting. Each of you will be given a ranking sheet showing all the qualifications each candidate must have to bid on this project. Staff has quantified their submittals and deemed the 2 candidates' proposals being complete. It is your responsibility to rank the 2 candidates. Upon determining the chosen candidate, you have the authority to direct the city manager to begin negotiations with the winning candidate. This project will have 2 task orders. The first task order to negotiate is the authorization to negotiate a fee for the 60% design phase and preparation of a guaranteed maximum price, or known as a GMP, not to exceed upon successful execution of the initial task order. The second task order will be to complete the design and construct of the project with the GPM. If the city cannot agree to proceed to the GPM, the city reserves the right to forego the execution of the second task order. At this point, the city will take ownership of the 60% design documents and will reserve the right to use the design at a future date. It is staff's recommendation that you take action to proceed and grant the city manager authority to negotiate the first task order. The second task order will be brought back to the commission later for approval. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Regards, Michael White, city manager. And just to refresh the public's memory on this, this is the commission has proceeded to borrow $3.9 million against the revenues we are receiving from the half-cent sales tax revenue, and all of this money will be used for paving and infrastructure, no other cent of it for anything else, and this will be the first project that we're looking at. So at this point, is there a motion or discussion on this item?
Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we rank Phoenix Construction, Panhandle Engineering 1, and C.W. Roberts and BCC Engineering 2.
Second.
There's been a motion placed on the floor that Phoenix Construction and Panhandle Engineering would be ranked 1, and C.W. Roberts Construction and BCC Engineering as number 2. There's been a motion and second. Is there any question or discussion from the board regarding the ranking?
I have a question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a representative from Panhandle or from Phoenix what the warranty is on their work. For how long?
Ted Choppy with Phoenix Construction, 1805 Tennessee Avenue.
I'm sorry, can you speak? Oh, there we got you. I got you.
Ted Choppy with Phoenix Construction, 1805 Tennessee Avenue. The warranty period is typically 1 year from completion, is what we typically do, is what's typically in the documents.
So that's what we're doing, that's what you're saying this project will be?
That's my understanding, but it would apply to each task order as we move forward. We finish one, there'll be a 1 year warranty. You move on to the next one, a 1 year warranty from that completion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, at this time, Mr. White, would you please call the roll then for the ranking of these two qualified companies and engineering firms?
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Commissioner Russell.
Yes.
Commissioner Tender.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So the motion is passed, and we can proceed. Okay, that brings us to, I've lost my... That brings us to item 15. This is the public commentary portion of the commission meeting. Any member of the public may approach the podium and ask questions or discuss any item of concern. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, but if you're on task and on point, I certainly will not cut anyone off. So who is first? Yes, Mr. Miller.
Leon Miller, 1508 Mississippi Avenue. I have just some questions to ask. Mr. Barnes, last meeting you brought out that we're going to have a shredding machine at King Griffin Park. What method are you using to get this out to the citizens?
I think the last time we spoke, the city manager, which is Mr. Schubert, and I think Mr. White's going to take over there, is to get it out on the internet, on our website, word of mouth. I also would like to put something in a newspaper, put it out on our Facebook page, and get it out as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Friend, since you was on the TPO council, where we stand now with 390 from 77 to 231, and are we involved in the state commissioner in this trying to get 390 moved up on the list?
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the last report that we had is that they are trying to get the funding for the PD&E study. They had started a PD&E study for 4 lanes. They stopped that PD&E study and decided to go with 6 lanes. So the last report we had is that they're trying to find the funding to get the new PD&E study for 6 lanes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, I talked to Commissioner Friend, but I'd like for the rest of the commissioners to go down Minnesota and 17th Street and look at the clearing of that lot and see if they're going to put a house there. I know it's under review, but you need to go by and look at it and see for yourself if they can put a house there. That's on the corner of Minnesota and 17th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there anyone else who would like to have a comment on any subject tonight? Anybody on the commission? We're good. Thank you so much. This meeting is now adjourned, and we appreciate all of your attending. Thank you.